Ladies and gentlemen, and for the Social Slam podcast, again, and with me is Cobra as well. All co-hosts are busy watching Daytona, so they cannot join us for right now. But we have a lot to talk about, so say hi, Cobra.
Hello, everyone. If you're wondering why Alex is the one taking the lead, this podcast is definitely going to be hosted a little bit differently. We are doing a rotation in the captain's chair. Next week, expect Greg Farmer, our host of the Lap Down podcast, to be the captain's chair for the Social Slam. I'm excited for this week, Alex, man. It's been exciting. Great to see you once again.
Oh yeah, it feels good to be here. It was a busy week for wrestling, both in the AEW world and the WWE world. A little bit of TNA news with the NXT Vengeance Day and Grand Slam for AEW. Before we get to those matches, we got to talk about some big news in the NXT world. Former AEW superstar Ricky Starks, a minute out of his free agency contract, goes into NXT and debuts. He will be signing a contract next Tuesday in NXT to start what he plans to do with NXT, which is turning it upside down. What are your thoughts, Cobra?
This is great. This is great. Ricky Starks going to NXT, which, to be fair, going to NXT for Ricky Starks is probably better than being called up to the main roster. NXT to me is a superior product. It is AEW like as far as its style and the way its wrestling is, but I think that this is a great move to bring him into NXT, like what they did with Joe Hendry and TNA, putting him in NXT. So I approve of this move.
Yeah, so do I. I think AEW missed the opportunity to really thrive with Ricky Starks. He was a very positive energy on TV and a very good heel in terms of the wrestling world in AEW. With a stacked roster, he kind of just was put behind the curtains of AEW for a long time. And knowing that his departure was imminent, I was expecting to go to NXT or even TNA because they have a big partnership with TNA right now with Jordan Grace, Joe Hendry, and with the Royal Rumble and stuff. I think this is a good move for them, and I hope he can thrive in NXT like he did in AEW, but on a
There was
bigger
also,
way.
sorry to interrupt, but there was also a surprise cameo return as far as the relationship with TNA and WWE. The former Fandango made his return to NXT. So that was a very interesting surprise as well.
Oh yeah, he partnered up with, I believe it was Josh Briggs yesterday, and fought Braxium for the tag team titles. In other news this week, Josh Alexander, the former TNA World Champion, is possibly in rumors going to AEW. He's finally leaving TNA after being there for a long, long time, tendering with them for a long time under Santino Marella's leadership and other leadership there too. I think this is a good move for them. I think Josh Alexander is a competitor. I think AEW, if they use him correctly, he can be a world champion and really wreak havoc on the roster, being as tall and big as he is. What are your thoughts?
Well, I do think this is a great move for AEW. I just they don't waste him. I also, kind of feel like it was a missed opportunity from WWE, because I just last week, well, not last week, but last time on the podcast, I mentioned that potentially seeing Josh Alexander versus Braun Breaker or even Gunther would have been a great WrestleMania matchup. To quote Big E, just big meaty men slapping meat. That's just it. Nothing like a good hoss fight, and Josh Alexander, of course, can move, unlike typical hosses. You know, you got Braun Breaker power. But again, just AEW, you have potential here to use Josh Alexander and don't waste him like Ethan Page. I think that I think it was Ethan Page. It was like they had like a few hosses they wasted over in AEW. So I am just giving this fair warning to Tony Khan. Don't waste it.
And there was a lot of speculations going on at Grand Slam Australia yesterday that he was booed in the arena because fans were paying more for ticket prices as they moved from a stadium to an arena. And the fans are not liking Tony Khan very much. So hopefully this boosts Tony Khan's likeness in AEW because he's been abused recently a lot in terms of backstage drama with, CM Punk, Jack Perry, Adam Cole, and, et cetera, et cetera. He's not doing good so far.
Tony wants to step back. He's putting himself too much. He's thrusting himself too much in the spotlight, almost like an Eric Bischoff, Vince Russo type. And he needs to take a step back because he is. I know he wants to be a part of the action. I know he's a big fan of wrestling because that's why he wants to be like in the grandiose spectrum of all. But he's turning himself into a cancer. Just, man, take a step back. Take a step back, and give the reins over to someone who is wrestling minded. And I definitely know that you have them. Give it to Jake Roberts, who can definitely write storylines for you. I mean, shit, Jake. Talk about another presence that they're not using. Jake Roberts, they're pretty much wasting him. As well as Lance Archer. I mean, shit. You're not using Danhausen either. You pretty much let him go. So, yeah, Tony Khan, take a step back, needs to get away from the main spotlight and realize his mistake, do right by the fans, and that is how you return AEW to its WWE threatening type of matchmaking. It's not even a close, like, hell, why don't you just reach across the aisle, to WWE and say, hey, let's do some Forbidden Door. Look, we can do that. Who wouldn't want to see Koichi Okada face off, come to WWE for like a one match deal or something like that? Hell, Orange Cassidy versus Kevin Owens. I think that would be hilarious.
Oh yeah. And then shocking news.
Booking.
Of course. And sort of shocking news out of TNA this week, former TNA World Champion Nick Nemeth, I believe this happened during his match against Joe Hendry when he lost the title, has been suspended for 4 weeks without pay for super kicking the director of TNA, Santino Marella, who made a crazy appearance last night on Vengeance Day with his daughter, Ariana Grace, and talking to Ava, the general manager of NXT. So expect more out of TNA and NXT coming up, especially with Jordan Grace installing herself and possibly Julia's eyesight, and Stephanie Valkyries for the NXT North American Championship and the NXT Women's Championship. What do you think? Why do you think the game has super kicked him?
Because I believe Nick Nemeth, wanted to be a part of whatever was going on, and they definitely didn't want to pull the trigger on that. And I also think that, or the reverse, that maybe Nick Nemeth was going to be the TNA Wrestling Exchange, and he wanted no part of that. So those are two options right there. But as far as Jordan Grace is concerned, she's not with TNA, she's with WWE. So that's not a cultural exchange, that's a contract signing. So,
that's right.
Again, so just trying to correct that. But at the same time, Nick Nemeth overstepped his bounds a little bit. Punishment was deserved. So I don't know what was going on in his head. Personally, I don't care. If that makes sense, like it's not my responsibility to think for wrestlers. I'm a fan outside looking in. But it's not a good look for the former Dolph Ziggler.
I mentioned that for you non-WWE watchers that most likely listen to this podcast. He is formerly known as Dolph Ziggler in WWE. And I think this is a really bad move for him. I know he's been kind of like off the hinges recently in TNA with his match against Josh Alexander, him blatantly being disrespected by Joe Hendry to his face during their promos with each other. So this is an awful move for him, and I'm glad Santino Marella, obviously for story purposes, is perfectly fine to show up at Vengeance Day yesterday. Because obviously TNA happens on Thursdays, but I'm not entirely sure this happened at the last pay-per-view event or was this a normal taping. But with that being said, we're going to talk about...
Oh, go ahead, Alex. Sorry about that.
And I was going to move on to the next segment if you want to input a little bit more.
I was going to add with an answer, but I also don't know either. But go ahead. Let's continue.
We're going to talk about NXT Vengeance Day, which you mentioned a few times in our conversations with the earlier topics. We're talking about all the matches that happened, new championship exchanges, and what could potentially evolve into this. We're going to first kick off with the Stephanie Valkyrie and Val Henley match for the NXT North American Women's Championship, with Stephanie Valkyrie beating the odds of the numbers with Val Henley, JC Jane, and the third woman that I forever forget her name because she's not as big as the other two are, to become the new women's champion. And like I said before, Jordan Grace might be her next target or next opponent in the future. We're not even sure. It just happened last night at the end of the show. But what are your thoughts on this match?
I thought it was a great match. Obviously, the women's division in NXT and WWE have definitely improved over the past 10 years. This is further proof of that. So no other opinion on that. This is a great matchup once again.
Yeah, I thought it was a great matchup too. Stephanie Valkyrie proving she is the dominant force out of New Japan Wrestling and the Indian circuit, with Julia being partnered up with her, behind the scenes and stuff. Next up, we had Fraxium, which is Nathan Frazier and Axiom defending against Josh Briggs and Inaka Inoue for the tag team championships. And Fraxium retained in a phenomenal matchup, proving that tag team works with good chemistry, and Fraxium has that. And Josh Briggs and Inoue had a great chemistry as well, with Inoue being a new partner to Josh Briggs after his original partner has went off the hinges in NXT recently in the past 2 or 3 months by going completely berserk.
Yes. We had mentioned it before that Fandango had made a return with Josh Briggs, which, by the way, great to see him back in NXT. And also I hate the fact that the mainline WWE hates tag teams in a way, because tag team wrestling is always great, especially with chemistry from great teams. So yeah, I want to see more tag team wrestling in mainline WWE. I hate that it's not being booked. I hope it's on the card for WrestleMania, because it wasn't on night 2 of WrestleMania. So just saying, there was no tag teams in WrestleMania other than The Rock and Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes. That was just not really tag teaming, not proper tag team wrestling.
Oh yeah, and an interesting development for Vengeance Day yesterday was there was a faction, well, not really a faction, but 4 Performance Center guys that attacked Obafemi, and other wrestlers. So people say this is the new Steel or the new Retribution. We don't know what to make of it just now. They were wearing masked all black, the Scar mask like the Shield wore back in 2012, 2013. But this feels like 2020 all over again for WWE with Retribution failing miserably to
Oh,
change the
oh, oh,
atmosphere.
oh. I had wiped that out of my head. To be fair, I mean, 2020 was already bleached out of my head. With the Thunderdome, with many a bad with Retribution Underground, that WWE Underground they had. Like, I had bleached that out of my memory. You just reminded me of that. How dare you, Alex? Ouch.
News to talk about. Come on now.
Yeah, I know. We got to talk about it. Yeah. Well, look, I he doesn't fumble the ball, because, but then it's likely that they won't, considering that one, Shawn Michaels is in charge of NXT, so hopefully, it's not Vince McMahon, who, it's Vince and Shane McMahon who have definitely screwed that up. I mean, and less said about famous women respecter Vince McMahon, the better.
100%. And next up on the card was
Yep.
Eddie Thorpe and Trick Williams in a strap match that developed last week on NXT beforehand, with Eddie Thorpe getting the shocking win over Trick Williams using the strap in heinous ways, obviously, as any strap match would go with the whipping of the strap. What were your thoughts on this match?
My main thought is that Trick Williams is definitely emerging as one of the best storytellers right now in NXT. The future looks bright for Trick. That's all I got to say. When he was partnered with Joe Hendry, I thought that was a big boost for him, not Joe Hendry. It really opened up more of his character as far as a believable babyface. So yeah, I hope that more comes out of this with Trick Williams. I definitely see him when he eventually does get called up, that he's in the picture for a major title, because I definitely see him like Intercontinental at least. It'd be a shame if he ever gets called up and doesn't get a title, because he is a great storyteller and a good wrestler. So, yeah, that's my main thought.
To agree with you on that. I mean, the storytelling with Camilla Hayes and the turn at Adventure State 2024 that was brought up last night, there's a turn that accelerated and really motivated Trick. He won the NXT Championship. He beat a big guy in Obafemi for it. Had a great match against him, a great grudge match. And it seems like right now Camilla Hayes is nowhere to be found. He's been kind of running off television as far as I can tell recently. He hasn't been a mainstream person. And it sucks because he's a great wrestler. He's a great charisma, and his act of portraying a heel is like the best we've ever seen, as a form of like Jake the Snake and other guys like that have been mainstream heels in WWF and WCW.
You just said it. Talk about another other future. I imagine him as WWE champion. The fact that he hasn't been called up to face Cody Rhodes right now, like, I get goosebumps from that guy. Seriously. Like, I think he has the charisma to even threaten the bloodline. That's how good I think he is.
Next up on the card was Ethan Page with Javon Evans, probably one of the most personal and most hyped up match of the night, with Ethan Page breaking the jaw of Javon Evans 3 or 4 weeks ago, having him getting surgery and going after and beating Javon Evans with knocking his mouth guard out and then injuring his jaw again because Javon Evans was seen bleeding from his mouth after losing that match. And Javon Evans needs to be on NXT for a longer time than most wrestlers because he is a very good high-flying wrestler that can take blows and do it. He was cleared literally last night, hours before Vengeance Day, to face Ethan Page after getting his jaw surgically fixed because Ethan Page shattered it with a steel chair 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah. Nothing like a personal grudge match and and an injury that potentially threatens your livelihood to really get the competitive juices flowing. I mean, if you want any further proof on how a career-threatening injury can drive a storyline, all I have to say is Steamboat Savage WrestleMania 3. That's all I got to say. You want to see how impactful a major injury can be, and recovering from that can be and drive a storyline. That's all I have to say. Steamboat Savage WrestleMania 3. Yeah. So again, the blueprint has always been there. Personal grudge matches are always great. However, don't go too far. I mean, we've seen that happen with Edge and Matt Hardy. But still, this was a great matchup. This was wrestling, excellent storytelling told by Ethan Page. I will say this, however, about Ethan Page. I think he needs a little bit more time in NXT before he gets a major call up. Primarily because right now WWE has too many good characters. So basically, keep Ethan Page down in NXT for right now.
I do agree, and Ethan Page has gone off the hinges mentally after losing the NXT Championship. I think to Trick Williams, I think it was Trick Williams. He lost it too, and this is just furthering saying that he's gone completely haywire, and injuring Jordan's like he did was so uncalled for and not necessary at all. But it definitely pushes the personal storylines. We see it in every wrestling company. I mean, last year, Kenny Omega, I know Swerve Strickland and Adam Page was a big one last year. Obviously, Swerve burning down his childhood home, taking it that far to get a great steel cage match for the third time fighting AEW. And we need more personal matches like this because it feels like it drives storylines and drives to future champions. And this could be a little seed planted for John Evans to thrive and become North American champion, or even get to the top of the totem pole and be NXT champion one day.
The caveat to that is, the personal grudge matches are better told by people who can also back up that grudge with in-ring talent. Look at Ricky Steamboat versus Randy Savage at WrestleMania 3. You want to talk about how skill and talent can drive grudge matches like that? Again, just watch that match. It still holds up to this day, despite being almost 35 years old. I think it is 35 years old. Hell, it might be 40 years old. It's still good. Yes, I'm getting hyped about WrestleMania. I'm sorry.
Chilling. It's coming up though. About a month now, as we are winding down.
I know.
February.
Exactly. I mean, we are on the road to WrestleMania.
So next match, personally, one of my favorite matches tonight was Austin Theory versus Grayson Waller versus Open Family, a triple threat match, driving a really good tag team in NXT apart in a very personal match between Austin Theory and Grayson Waller as they were feuding. The entire match also was attacking Open Family, which there was carnage everywhere. There was tables being broke, chairs being used, and bodies were being thrown everywhere Open Family because that's what he does. and he retains in a triple threat match, which was a fantastic match with the tag team being broken up in that sort of way, being so personal over a championship.
Oh yeah, this reminded me of an old school ECW brouhaha. Best way I can describe that. Like, tables, chairs, carnage, melees. Like, yes, my type. Well, not my type of wrestling, but you know what I mean. My era of wrestling, I should say. Like, yeah, I've grown older and I've grown past the I just want blood and guts, type of wrestling. No, I love storytelling in wrestling. And even if you can use a table, a chair, or any type of weapon that can accentuate the match, then I'm all for it. And this turned out to be an absolute carnival of carnage. Best way I could describe it. I mean, shout out to the Insane Clown Posse, by the way. But yeah, it's a true carnage, carnage fest. In that matchup, man.
Oh yeah, I definitely do agree. It was definitely a fun match to watch. And the big main event last night was Julia, the NXT Women's Championship, versus Cora Jade, versus Roxanne Perez, versus Bayley, who surprisingly got brought down to NXT to compete in this match, even though she's been kind of not looking too good in the ring because of how old she's getting and she's kind of downgrading in wrestling. But Julia retains in a fantastic match of four amazing women who have championship resumes on them, obviously, with Cora Jade and Roxanne Perez being recent NXT champions. What was your opinion on this match?
Well, first off, I want to add that to your Bayley comment. I think it's fine to send Bayley down to NXT. You did note that her wrestling skills are diminishing. That's a lot. A lot of that has to do with injury. Bayley has had injuries pile up. So sending her down to NXT is still a safe bet instead of having her, kind of dwindle away into the ether. Unlike, but it's I wouldn't consider it a sad thing because NXT is where Bayley got her start, and if this is where Bayley hangs up the boots per se in NXT, I think it's apropos. I think to be fair, it's fitting. But again, I have been loving women's wrestling more and more. It's definitely leagues better than it was in the late 90s, early 2000s when wrestling was at its peak. The women aren't eye candy like they were in the era of wrestling, and even in the Divas Championship era, where the matches were just popcorn grabbers. So to see women's wrestling in the main event, one I want to add is great. It's one of the greatest things to happen to wrestling right now. About this match, pretty good match. It was kind of one of those, we had a lot of hard hitters. This one's kind of down. This is your after dinner mint type of event. It wasn't a bad match. It was a good match. Obviously the right person kept the title. Bayley doesn't need to win any more NXT titles per se. I think if they're gonna book her to be in the championship running, treat like she's John Cena. Basically, have her get so close to the title and just it's not enough. She doesn't have enough anymore. That type of booking.
Oh yeah, I definitely do agree, and I feel like this is a good thing for Bayley. Obviously, she has a Hall of Fame ballot resume, being SmackDown and Raw Women's Champion, Tag Team Champion, and obviously big factions returning at SummerSlam. I think earlier last year with Kairi Sane and Dakota Kai, with her faction that ended up, kicking her out of it, and then that's how she got to NXT to begin with. And I think this is a good step for Julia. She has been a wrecking crew coming out of New Japan, being a very underlooked wrestler in terms of American wrestling, being so big overseas. That with her and Stephanie Vaquer running the show as champions right now is a really good thing for NXT, and I hope this thrives with both of them in terms of their resumes and who they can face later on with their championships.
Right.
Next up, we're going to go switch over to AEW with Grand Slam. That was also yesterday as well, simultaneously with Vengeance Day. I unfortunately could not watch this, so I'm just going to go based off of what I read online, getting the results of this. But we had Mariah May taking on Toni Storm for the Women's Championship.
I didn't watch this either, so don't feel alone.
Gotcha. Yeah, so Toni Storm ended up becoming the first four-time AEW Women's Champion, knocking off Mariah May in Australia, which, if you guys don't know, she is from Australia originally. She is not booked out of Australia. She is from Australia, like other wrestlers are, like Grayson Waller in WWE. But what I read that this match was a good match. They seem to have grudge matches recently, and I'm glad Toni Storm finally got back on the pedestal again, being women's champion. She was a good champion as a timeless Toni Storm. My problem with her was she came back as Toni Storm originally when she lost to Mariah May. She kind of went off of TV for a little bit, for about a month or two, came back as Toni Storm, and then immediately went back to timeless Toni Storm like a month later. And I was like, what are we doing with her? Why are we booking her like this? And I think it's just another Tony Khan blunder. Booked her as Toni Storm. She debuted, changed her gimmick, changed it back, and then changed it again to timeless Toni Storm right after she came back as Toni Storm when she was with the Riot Squad and stuff back in 2014. I just don't know what Tony Khan is doing with her anymore. Why we keep switching her gimmicks? What are your thoughts?
Because my thought on that one is that Tony Khan was trying to audible her out of timeless Toni Storm, and realized that, one, maybe he should have not pulled the trigger so early for Toni Storm. Basically, if you're going to keep someone off TV, keep them off TV for probably a minimum of like 3 months, if that makes sense. Like, let the hype build. Like, when they're off TV, for like a few months, then when they come back, excuse me, when they come back, it's a big shock, a big pop. It's a big and pop. The crowd gets excited. It gets talked about, and she was done. She announced her retirement. Now she's back. What is going to happen now? That type. And instead, Tony Khan, decided to pull that out of the oven, realized it wasn't done. Oh crap, what do I do now? I can't serve it like this. Shove it back into the oven. Oh crap, that sucked. It's time to go back to work. So that was all Tony Khan.
And this has been a recent trend with Tony Khan, either ruining certain characters by writing on TV or just burying them on the main roster with just putting them on a Collision and a couple, pre-shows for, Double Nothing or anything like that. So he does a lot with this. He did it with Danhausen. He partnered up with him with Hook. We got, and then we buried Danhausen. We buried Rusev. We buried Ethan Page. We buried all these great gimmicks because he doesn't know what the heck he's doing. And Malachi Black
Lance
is about to leave AEW. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, Aleister Black
Yeah,
is
Lance
really about to
Archer,
leave
Ethan Page, Yeah.
to go back
Yeah,
because
it's
he
like
was buried.
he has all this. Tony Khan has all this great talent. He does nothing with it. He just treats it like his shiny toys. And propel. He's got Mark Briscoe. He's got Mark Briscoe, and I don't think he's done anything with him since Jay died. So I don't understand it. I don't think he's doing anything with Okada. I don't think he's doing anything with Will Ospreay. Like he definitely hasn't done anything like or Lance Archer or even Orange Cassidy. You have great wrestlers here. Shit, I get so mad. Oh, let's put out Mercedes Moné. Let's make her do a promo. She can't do a promo for shit. Talk about another fumble is AEW's women's division. You signed Mercedes Moné, aka Sasha Banks. Great. Everyone hates her now because everyone realized, oh shit, she can't do a promo.
Oh yeah. And speaking of the Will Ospreay, he partnered up with Kenny Omega to face the Don Callis family, which was Carlos Fletcher and Konosuke Takeshita, because Ospreay has had big beef with Don Callis recently and having him leave, and Fletcher going on a mental collapse, shaving his head, calling Ospreay a liar, calling Ospreay that he turned his back on Don Callis, stabbed him in the back, this, that, and the third. And Ospreay and Omega got the win. And they had a great chemistry from the highlights I saw. They did the One Winged Angel and Ospreay's finisher simultaneously to put a dagger in this feud and hopefully to end it, because honestly, I'm tired of Don Callis. He annoys my ears when I see him and I listen to him. I'm like, leave, go away, goodbye. So I hope Don Callis at some point shuts up.
To be fair to Don Callis, he does his role well. That's what he's supposed to do. I mean, he was Cyrus the Virus in ECW. He was the Jackal in WWE. A little bit of a side note right there, a little bit of history lesson. But yeah, Don Callis does his job. However, the main problem I have with the Callis family is not the Callis family themselves, but the fact that we have so many factions in AEW. We have the Learning Tree with Chris Jericho. We have the Callis family. We have the Elite, the Bucks. We have so many factions. I just want, it's just, come on, set your established single stars. Factions, they have done shit with the Dark Order. So,
And then they buried
but again, there's just
House of Black.
Yeah. So again, there's so many factions. They're trying to shoot to the moon to be the next Bullet Club, and it ends up being the NWOB team. Best way I can describe it.
Oh yeah, and on the topic of the House of Black and Kazuchika Okada, they had a matchup on Saturday as well for the AEW Continental Championship, probably one of the most irrelevant championships on the roster outside of what used to be the FCW Championship before before Hook finally put it in the grave and retired it for once and for all. But anyway, this was a good match. I like Bernie Matthews. He's a very hard-hitting guy. Okada is a very good hard-hitting guy as well. His personality is so funny on TV. Because if you listen to him talk, he has a big promo with the Young Bucks where he has a headset on and he makes fun of people. But how he says a certain word is really funny because he's a New Japan Wrestling guy, so he has an accent. So, but he's pretty funny on the mic in terms of that. But I do not like the Continental Championship. They took the old championship and murdered it.
Look, I love Okada-san. Like, Okada is awesome. Always has been great. I mean, he had to suffer, if that makes sense. He had to suffer as like a Green Hornet sidekick Kato type thing in TNA before coming back to New Japan and becoming the Rainmaker that he is. You know, and to see Okada basically almost like a shell in a way, it's really refreshing. But also Okada, I don't think has bad matches. No matter where he is, he's always great. I have nothing bad to say about Okada. I will always cheer Okada-san, primarily because, Okada's, whether it be face or heel, I'm just rooting for Okada. He's that good.
Also love Okada on TV. I think he's a good personality, but we need to put other titles on him because the Continental Championship barely gets shown on TV. It's barely defended.
He needs the big belt. He needs the main championship now.
Yeah, until we pry it off of Jon Moxley's hands because he refuses to defend that title, and he had a great match with Orange Cassidy last year, and he still retained. And I was pushing for Cassidy to be world champion because I love Orange Cassidy. He's a great personality. He's such a good wrestler, and he takes so much pain and suffering, and he just doesn't get rewarded for it at all. And it's disrespectful on Tony Khan running it. I think he's better elsewhere.
I'm gonna say my fantasy booking has Orange Cassidy facing off against Kevin Owens, and I think that would be amazing.
Oh yeah, they're both. Well, Orange is more of like a heel face character, but he does portray a heel character pretty well. And what the events happened recently with the best friends and Tony and Beretta, he has a heel personality now, and he has no F's to give. And he had no F's to give to Jon Moxley. He went to Jon Moxley and said, "I'm beating your ass for that championship."
That's why it's perfect against Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens is the most try-hard, serious type of wrestler, and you face off against Orange Cassidy, who has zero fucks to give. Oh my God, you have gold. That's why my fantasy booking is going crazy.
Oh, I definitely agree with you on that one. So the next matchup was Jay White and Adam Copeland taking on the Death Riders of Jon Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli. That's what their faction's called, is the Death Riders.
Hold up. Yeah, Alex, he's not Adam Copeland. He's just Cope.
Oh, that's right. He changed his name again.
He's just Cope now. Remember that?
Tony Khan.
Yeah. That is just too stupid. Why? Why not just call him Sexton Hardcastle?
He came back after breaking his leg against Aleister Black in the steel cage match, jumped off the cage and shattered his leg. Came back, and the Death Riders got the win, of course, and they fought in a Brisbane brawl, which I think is kind of like a stadium stampede type of match. Anything goes, no disqualification, and things like that. But the Death Riders, I hate the name, for one. And for two, I hate that they're running AEW in terms of, we're going to expose all the theories of Tony Khan, and now he's not running the show anymore. Tony Schiavone is this, like, weird character that he's not who he says he is. It's bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
And the last match up for Grand Slam was Mercedes Moné defending the TBS Championship. One of her, 5 belts she has, because she's won everything in New Japan and, AEW, being TBS champion, being the New Japan Women's Strong champion. And I think she's like 1 or 2 champions too. She has like 5 belts on. Gets Harley Cameron, which I think was related to, was it Britt Baker? Just with somebody behind the scenes and like being the manager. But obviously, Moné retains. And I think I agree with your point earlier. Moné cannot turn a promo. She's bad at wrestling, and she just needs to get rid of all her belts and just
Hold
something different because she is a terrible champion in AEW.
Hold up. Yes, she is a terrible promo, so why not give her a mouthpiece? 1. 2, I find her holding the belts. Hell, make it a part of her character. Like, she's a belt collector. That could fucking work. Especially for someone like Mercedes Moné. Walking out with all those belts, then bringing her mouthpiece along, holding the belts as well. Like, it could work like that, so don't knock that. Don't take, if you can do that, the crowd can turn in Mercedes Moné's favor. So don't necessarily take the belts off her, but if you can do that, you might be able to save, Mercedes Moné there. Make her like what Ultimo Dragon was, or Dan Severn. Like, oh, I just have all the belts. Make it a part of her character. Like, she's the belt collector and I'm going to take it all. Something like that. And I could back it up. Like, it's so easy to do. If you're going to do it like that, give her a piece and then roll with it. It's not that hard.
I think he's failing to portray Mercedes Moné like WWE did with Adam Cole's faction when they had all the titles. They were tag team champions, North American champion, NXT champion. They were running NXT for 3 or 4 years, and Mercedes Moné is trying to be that, but she doesn't defend her belts very often. She defends against people that no one cares about, and when she needs to lose, she always wins, and I just don't understand.
But again, it's easy to solve. Give her a mouthpiece. Give Mercedes Moné a mouthpiece, and you fix the issue. You fix an issue. They're not doing it, and it frustrates me too, man.
That's another Tony Khan failure to push talent the right way on the main roster. And with wrestlers in the women's division that need championships, like Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale eventually should win a title, this is another attempt to just push a main roster woman from WWE and slap her on EW's brand and say, hey, here's a champion that has 5 of them belts, doesn't defend them, and she has a supporting manager that ended up turning on her. She turned on her, and then it just devolved from there.
Tony Khan is not learning from the mistakes of WCW. Come on, man. This is what Eric Bischoff did in WCW. He pushed WWE guys too far. Instead of nurturing the homegrown talent. It ain't that hard. Shit.
Oh, yeah. And before we get off here, we have some WWE news to address as well. This past week, Michelle McCool, the wife of Undertaker, was announced for the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2025, joining Triple H in a very stacked very stacked Hall of Fame period. She was on the Chris Van Vliet show talking to him about potentially going to the Hall of Fame, and then just like that, magic happened. She's in the Hall of Fame, joining her husband, The Undertaker, in the Hall of Fame, that she'll be inducted during WrestleMania weekend.
Yeah. Which by the way, Michelle McCool is underrated as a wrestler, so to see her in the Hall of Fame is very, very good to see. Obviously she couldn't showcase what she was capable of in the era where she was in. Like, she was kind of sandwiched in the tail end of the Ruthless Aggression era, and in the beginning of the Divas era. So, a lot of people are probably looking at her induction as, oh, she was just eye candy while she in the Hall of Fame. She's actually a decent wrestler. Like, yeah, she married The Undertaker, but she got out when she did. So, I don't disagree with this induction choice. I I think it's a good move. The Hall of Fame needs more women wrestlers in it, and I know it's kind of a little bit thin right now, but that's coming. But more women Hall of Famers are coming for WWE. I do think there are some they need to remove, but hey, beggars can't be choosers right now. We have Michelle going into Hall of Fame, and rightfully so. But speaking of that, Alex, I heard some news as well, Hall of Fame related. It has been reported that Demolition have signed a Legends contract with the WWE. So potentially we might see Demolition in the Hall of Fame. What is your opinion on that, man?
I do like it. I'm probably too young to remember Demolition being a tag team in wrestling because I watched in the bulk of the PG era, the mid 2000s. When John Cena was running everything and the Shield was on top of the world in WWE. So, I'm on the tail end of watching Michelle McCool in her prime. I watched her at the tail end of her career being Davis champion and being a good wrestler on the main roster. So I'm probably too young to remember Demolition, but I would definitely have to watch highlights of the matches to see what I missed, possibly in the Rules Progression era or the
So
WCW era.
Let me tell you about Demolition. This will definitely age me. I am definitely older than you, but I do remember Demolition. Demolition were definitely WWE's answer to the Road Warriors. With Axe and Smash and later Crush. So they were managed also by Mr. Fuji, so that's another thing. And so Axe and Smash were powerful type wrestlers, again in the same vein as Animal and Hawk of the Road Warriors. They were also holders of the longest tag team championship streak before that was broken up by the New Day. And so also Demolition, the reason why they weren't in the Hall of Fame when they were because both Axe and Smash were involved in the class action lawsuit against WWE for concussions related to CTE. So their names are involved in the class action lawsuit. But at the same time, it's like, if Demolition does go in, I think it's deserved. We need a tag team like Demolition in the Hall of Fame. It's kind of sad that they can't be inducted by the Road Warriors because I thought that would have been great. Unfortunately, Hawk died first. That's kind of unfortunate. Then we lost Animal, later on down the road. And of course the other half of Demolition is gone as well, with Fuji and Crush, all having had passed away. So it's going to be interesting who inducts Demolition in. They're part of the golden age of WWE when wrestling was starting to get hot. So it's going to be very interesting if they do induct Demolition.
Do you think this Hall of Fame class is small this year with only 2 known inductees? Usually the class is a lot bigger for WrestleMania weekend. But do you think any other legends will be added to the class outside of Michelle McCool and Triple H, and then possibly, like you said, Demolition being a part of it?
I definitely think so. I mean, one name that definitely comes to mind, for me at least, I think it's time to induct Brian Pillman in the Hall of Fame. I know last time I said we're induct Sid, but I think Brian Pillman deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, considering that Lexis King, his son, is in NXT right now, tearing it up. I definitely think it is time to bring in Brian Pillman to Hall of Fame. Definitely. The person to probably help induct him, King would be the one to accept the award, but the person to finally induct Brian Pillman would be Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah, I do agree. I also think that even though he's still an active wrestler, I think Rey Mysterio, at some point needs to be in the Hall of Fame. Active wrestler or not, he has a good resume. He has the resume to be in the Hall of Fame. Even though he doesn't have any title wins, big title wins, he still has the charisma to be in the Hall of Fame. Give me 1 second, guys. Just having technical difficulties with his audio, so he'll be back in a minute here.
Yeah, I don't know where you're getting the Rey Mysterio didn't win any major titles. He did. He won 2. So, I don't know where you got that.
Maybe my age is the problem here with that.
Yeah, I'm about to say he won the world title in 2006. After Eddie Guerrero died. And then he won the WWE title when CM Punk vacated it.
Oh, shit. I think another one that should be in the Hall of Fame, but they're not already, is the Shield, either as a whole or individually. I know Jon Moxley is in AEW now, and they don't usually induct former WWE stars in the Hall of Fame that are talking crap about WWE. But the Shield needs to be in there at some point. If you look at the resumes as a whole and individually, they have multiple Grand Slam championship wins and major title wins.
I think that the Shield will retire when both Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns retire. That's when I think the Shield go in. They will be in eventually. Because the presence they had is there. It was there. It was one of those types of I also think that there are a couple wrestlers that could be in the Hall of Fame. Batista and The Rock should be in the Hall of Fame. Like, that would cover the celebrity inductee and the wrestler and a wrestler inductee at the same time. So those are options.
Oh, 100%. I agree with Batista. I watched him at the back half of his career before he went to do movies, like most WWE superstars do, either crappy WWE movies or actually making money making movies. Obviously, Batista is, in Guardians of the Galaxy and other things like that. But I think he's going to get in at some point as well. He was a big part of WWE in the early 2010s and the late 2010s and even the early 2000s with the early part of his career. And Randy Orton definitely is another one in the future as a Hall of Famer, youngest WWE champion ever at just 20 years old, and he has the resume to be in the Hall of Fame. 24, yes.
Absolutely,
the youngest
absolutely.
Ever.
Yep.
And with that all being said,
so.
Mm-hmm.
And with that all being said, that's that is definitely was our final bell, which of course was brought to you by our friends at Fanatics. The President's Day sale is upon us, and of course, we are on the road to WrestleMania. So, Fanatics currently has their President's Day sale. Use the code PATRIOT for 40% off while President's Day is going on. The Four Nations hockey game did happen, so represent your country with pride. And of course, Again, the road to WrestleMania is upon us, so gear up. Grab yourself a brand new shirt, rocking your favorite wrestler, and don't forget about season. Grab yourself a jersey and a hat. Get ready for that. But when you do, please use our affiliate link in the bio wherever you get your podcasts and show the channel some love. Fanatics. All right. Alex, great job, man. Great job being in the captain's chair. Obviously, we want to give a shout out to our friends over on the lap down. You know, of course, biscuits and penalties. We didn't have an episode last night, unfortunately. We will be returning to the ice next week, so be on the listen for that. The Dirt and Turf podcast is also getting ready to go underway, so get ready for that as well. And we're also on YouTube, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts, and we're on TikTok. So check us out, like, comment, and subscribe. We definitely welcome your feedback. And also we want to give a special shout out to our theme creator, Fred the Shred Brum, who has given us our theme FAB. So do check him out. Definitely love him. He definitely gave us that song, which was awesome. It is his, by the way, so show him some support wherever you listen. But yeah, that was the final bell. Alex, sorry about that.
Are you good?
I overstepped my bound. It's your show, man.
And like Cobra said, we are continuing the road to WrestleMania with our next episode being held right after the Elimination Chamber, or going back to the Elimination Chamber, who would face, I think, Cody Rhodes at Mania, because we know Gunther is facing Jey Uso, and who would face one of the women's championships at Mania in Vegas on Easter weekend.
Yep. And of course, we will have a special guest on the podcast as well. Ranch hand Sean Carlson, a local indie wrestler from where I live. He has appeared in NWA. So be sure to give him a Social Slam podcast welcome when you listen out for him. We definitely will. But that is the end of our podcast. Alex, anything you would like to add before we close this out?
I don't think so.
All right. So that is it for the Social Slam podcast. Ring that bell. We'll see you next time.